Hey yo, it's Guido coming at you with a tactics talk, and the first in what will probably be a series of request reviews. This first one will be the Swedish Leo, a tier 7 medium tank on their tech tree. You can see it here in my garage with the fireworks going off in the back. They're so happy the Leo is getting a review. That's why it's kind of a strange one to do a review. The Swedes have been out for quite a while, but I've got a subscriber who is interested in learning how to play it. So we'll do the standard stuff here. Get an overview, take a look at any tech tree considerations. This one is a tech tree tank, so there will be some things to talk about there. The 3D model doesn't really have any armor. Spoiler alert. A comparison amongst its peers. We'll take a look at my stats, my setup, and examples of gameplay. I played about 63 or so battles in this when I ground through it, and did another, I'm not going to do the math anyway, but I went to 100 battles. Let's just put it that way. Somewhere around 40, slightly less, right? So I could get a feel for what it's doing in the current meta, and that is what I did. We'll talk about that. So the stats are a little bit mixed up, but they do tell a tale. Let's move on to the overview. Here it is in garage, and you can see that from the write-up that this thing is one of those project tanks that really did not see the light of day. Late 1940s Landsverk, I'm sure that's how you say it, developed a series of tanks primarily intended for export, so the Swedes were looking to sell this thing. The Sturb Leo medium tank was the heaviest of the series. That's kind of interesting, and it is a fairly large medium tank. The Army took an interest in the project, but it did not offer considerable advantages over foreign peers that were available for purchase. Eventually, they favored another project, which is a nice way to say that they didn't buy it, didn't want it. But you can see that it is a relatively large medium tank. Now, if you look at the Panther, okay, that this thing is just like a Maus at the tier 7 medium, in the tier 7 medium class, but at a T-34-1 is quite a bit smaller than this thing. T-43 also relatively small. KV-13 relatively small. See the Leo. T-20 is roughly the same size. Panther M10 is obviously huge based on a Panther right there. The 3002 is a fairly large tank, so it's right there. Although it ends up with a pretty good camo rating based on the fact that it is low slung, so it's got a fairly low profile like the T-20 does, and of course the 34-1 I just showed you has a much lower profile. But taking a look at the Leo, then you can see that there is some angling to the armor, although this lower plate is not angled very well at all. And we'll talk about that when we get to it, but the armor just really doesn't do anything for this tank. There's some weird angles on the sides, but it's so thin it's almost unusable. Very large turret. Big fat turret to shoot into the side. The tracks are decently big for side scraping and eating heat, but there's some nice spaces here to go through without having to deal with hitting the tracks on this thing. And of course there's the rear. Like any tank, there's not much going on there. There's a weak spot in the hatch right there, but it doesn't really matter. The whole front of this thing is pretty much a weak spot. Let's move on to the tech tree. Our tech tree considerations are kind of interesting from the crew standpoint because it is a mixed line. So you're going to have the shuffle McFuffle there with your crew. You've got light tanks at tier 2 and 3. You've got medium tanks from tier 4, 5, 6, and 7. Then you go into heavy tanks. There's 3 crew members on the 2 and 3 as light crew members. There are 4 crew members on all of the mediums up to tier 7. And there are 3 crew members on the Emils and the Kron. What you gain in the mediums is a loader, and then you lose it on the heavies. No loader on the autoloader, and then the 2 lights don't have a loader, so somebody else is doubled up, probably the commander or maybe the gunner as far as loading duties go. So you're going to have to carry a loader through these 4 tanks. Bit problematic because it's not really worth bringing crews from tier 2 up to about 4. Somewhere around 5 is where you want to start bringing crews forward, unless you're going to hang out down at tier 2 and 3 and train your crews for a very long time. But if you're purely going to grind, and even if you're just a mediocre player, you'll get through the 2, 3, and 4 pretty quickly, relatively speaking, and your crew is not going to really be that good to drag it along. In any event, it's going to cost you a lot of money to go from a light tank to a medium tank and change the tank. At least from the Lago up to the Leo, you've got 4 tanks where you can move medium crews and just have to retrain them to the type of tank. You don't actually have to also retrain them over to a different class of tank. Taking a look at the Leo then, from what I could gather, and sometimes it's a little buggy when you do this on the comparison tool, it looks like in order to even put this second gun on here, you've got to have the tracks, which is interesting because the second gun should come unlocked based on it's the gun from the Sturb 7.4, and it's the gun you have to go through to get to the Leo. So you're going to be forced to use a slightly less capable cannon, the 7.5 M43, until you unlock the tracks. Like I said, the comparison tool is a little bit buggy, so, and I didn't grind this time for this review. It's been a year or two ago that I did it. So, but that's what it appears to be. Once you get the tracks, obviously you can do everything. So you have to do that to taste. If you simply cannot put that cannon on, you probably want to grind the tracks first and then work yourself up to the cannon, then worry about the engines later on. But once it gets fully outfitted, you really have a choice between the 7.5, which is a lower tier gun and not very great at tier 7, or the quite derpy 10 centimeter 300 Alpha gun. I'll talk about that when we get to the comparison, about the differences between those two and why it's kind of an interesting choice. That is basically it for the tech tree considerations. For the 3D model, there's not a whole bunch to say about this tank. A lot of times when you've got a medium like this that has decent numbers as far as thickness, you can say things like, well, you know, you'll get some decent bounces occasionally. This has not been my experience with this tank. We'll see if what I feel like is matched by low armor efficiency numbers, because I feel like this thing just really has a trouble having its armor be useful. Now, if you are highly angled in that lower plate, now we get into kind of the auto bounce area, the ricochet. But as we thin out, or as we get less angle on this, you can see that it really just doesn't work very well. The face of the turret, which is massive, I mean, look at that. Look at the profile of the tank. This whole area is really just a weak spot. We're talking 70 millimeters right there. All you need is 70 to pin that thing. 43 there, 82 down below, 73 on that lower kind of plate right there. The weak spot, which who cares, is at 50. Who cares? You got 74 there. There's 50 up there. The sides are very weak. Like I said earlier on the overview, the tracks are fairly large, so they are a little bit useful on dealing with absorbing heat or splash damage from HE, or forcing the damage to go to the tracks from HE. And that's really all there is to say about it. It doesn't even really have a proper mantlet. If you look at this area right here, once it starts to get to the angle, so look at that right there. It's pretty flat. It's got that kind of curved thing going on right there, which means that the face of it is very easy to pin. Once you get towards the edges where it's very curved, then it gets a little bit more effective, but everyone's going to be aiming right in this area right here. And without a proper mantlet, just the whole face of the turret is weak. So it's got great gun depression. We'll talk about that in a minute. You want to think, well, this is a ridge fighter. Well, it is, but the turret can't help you. The turret can't help you. All right, let's move on. All right, here we are comparing the Leo amongst its peers. These are all tech tree tanks. I left any premiums off on this particular one. And the tale that is told here is that this is a very large alpha gun on a not great platform. So let's take a look at that. Average damage per shot is 300 with the 10.5 centimeter. Similar to the larger caliber ones up here, like the 34-100 at 250 and the 34-1, both with 100 millimeter guns, are sitting at 250. And then the T20, which I believe is a 90 millimeter gun, at 240. And you see that the rest of the peers drop off from damage right there. But this thing's carrying a 300 alpha stick around at tier 7 as a medium in a relatively maneuverable tank. So it has the ability to get that big stick to battle, but you're going to pay the cost for that in rate of fire and, unfortunately, accuracy. You can see that it's 5.56 rate of fire, whereas the T20, and if you've played that, the T20 feels like it just takes forever to reload, and it does in comparison to the rest of the tanks around there. Now, that's a rate of fire, by the way, not reload, 6.66. So if you've played the T20, you kind of get an idea of it, how painful it can be, and now make it worse. That's the Leo, as far as the feel of the comfortableness of getting shots down range at tier 7 as a medium. But it does have a -10 depression, but a really poor elevation. This does limit it. I found myself multiple times having a problem getting my gun up on guys that are above me in various places. And that's a problem in this game, because there's a lot of weird slopes and sitting on the back of hills and shooting across ravines and things like that, where you do need elevation. Not as important as depression, but 15 is painful in this game for elevation. So we get down here and we're talking about the reload. There it is. I got a little ahead of myself. 10.79, whereas the T20, which feels like it takes forever, is 9.01. The 34-100 at 8, the 34-1 at 9. So the bigger sticks just take longer to reload. That way their DPM isn't much higher than a lower alpha tank. That's the trade-off, but at tier 7 medium, you're kind of expecting to still be pumping rounds down range, and you're paying for that 300 alpha with a just extremely painful reload time. And unfortunately, where this tank really falls down is not only does it take a long time to reload, it takes a very long time to aim and is not very accurate at 2.88 aiming time. That's just atrocious. It's even worse than the Chinese tank. That's hard to take. The dispersion, though, I think is the big one at 0.4. Now, the Chinese tank's at 0.4 as well. It's been a long time since I drove the 34-1, but holy cow, with a 2.88 aiming time and a dispersion of 0.4, if you are any kind of snap shooting person like I am, attempting to get rounds down range as soon as you're reloaded, minimizing exposure by popping out, you have to be dialing that back, let's say, a little bit, if you don't want to get extremely frustrated with this thing shooting everything but the guy that you are pointed at. That gives it a DPM of 1669, which is kind of on the low side. Take a look at that. 1682 for the 34-1, 1598 for the T90. Somehow the T90 with less alpha is awarded with a worse DPM. Why? Because it's got better accuracy. That's the trade-off in the balance. But 3002Ds at 2100, the Panthers at 2100, the Comets up there at 2246. These guys are going to rake you over the coals. If you show up same hit points with a Comet, you're going to get wrecked. He is going to tear you a new one because your armor is simply not going to work, and he's going to eat you alive. Even the Chi-Ri with an auto loader is at 2019, which is pretty funny. Hit points are right there in the middle. There's the armor. The numbers look actually pretty good. 70, 30, 20. All right. That makes the sight extremely weak, probably worst in class, really. But 70 is somewhere close to a lot of these guys, but it doesn't work. It simply, the armor does not hold up for this thing. Come down here, top speed 60. Hey, that's showing as the top. It is fairly quick. I don't know if it will actually do 60 without going down a hill, but it does move its crummy gun around the battlefield pretty nicely, to be quite honest. Concealment is decent at 15. You can see the 34-1's at 17, but it's near the top on concealment right there. And that's kind of problematic. It's like, okay, I got a stealthy Swedish tank. Swedish TDs are stealthy. I'm going to hang out in a bush. But now you're dealing with 0.4 dispersion and 300 alpha and 11-second reloads and a forever aim in time. That is where you start to discuss, all right, maybe I go down to the smaller gun so I can get some more accuracy. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But the smaller gun's going to get you less pen, obviously, less DPM, yada yada. Spotting range is okay at 370, not great, and that is pretty much it. So I really gave it away already when I started with the comparison here. Is what you've got is a really strong gun, damage-wise, at least per shot, that is on a mobile platform, which has a really hard time getting shots on target. Because of the aim time and the terrible dispersion and the super long reload. This makes you very bad as a lone wolf, getting out there like a Comet might and jumping all over people and getting away, while you kind of have the maneuverability to do that, sort of. You're a relatively large platform and your reload time will kill you. And God forbid you bounce a shot, because then it really is over at that point. So you need to be around other people. I hate to say... The whole idea of I'm a support tank and I sit behind others and wait, I don't like that. You need to manufacture your shots, but you can support a group of tanks while being aggressive without being the guy that actually pushes in and starts circling and doing all that kind of thing. This tank simply doesn't do that very well, and you need to be very careful about shot selection and aiming in, or it will get extremely frustrating very quickly. So how did I do? You can see that I've got to 100 battles on this thing. I started at 53% when I was at 63 battles, I believe. I ground through this. I actually unlocked modules way back in the day when I started. I probably played it another 10 times, I would say. So I was somewhere around 63 battles. Got up to 100 battles and increased my win rate up to 55% on it. Now this is interesting. The hits are 72.21, which is not that far off of my other tier 7 mediums, but there was a long period in there where I was actually running the small gun to try to test that out, and I did that during my initial grind because I got very frustrated, as I recall, with the 10.5 centimeter, and I finished out my grind the last 20 battles or so with the smaller gun, which is more accurate. Plus, of course, when you start the grind, you've got the smaller gun. So that's a mixture of the two guns is what I'm saying, and I am pretty sure that the 10.5 centimeter is more likely to be around 70, maybe 68 to 70% hit, and that is on the low end of my medium tanks. 1.34 damage ratio, destruction at 1.85 is okay. There's that armor use efficiency, yeah, 0.09. Unless it's around 0.2 or so, your armor's not really doing anything for you. So that does check with what I saw. Average experience at 858 is kind of low. 1289 damage. I was holding 1300 for quite a long time. My last 5 battles were absolutely atrocious. I ended up winning, I think, 4 of them, but I was doing 500 damage on them. It was terrible. And 344 assists. So spotted 1.29 and 1.22 destroyed. The spotted kind of shows I'm getting a little more forward than I probably want to be in this tank, based on the discussion we just had about how it's more support a group of tanks and bring that big stick in at more opportune moments. Vice being the guy that initially gets somewhere and is trying to take snapshots on fast-moving tanks right near the front, that kind of thing. So that's probably telling a tale right there. I managed 3,552 and 8 kills. The 8 kills, I believe, was, I'm going to have that replay for you, although it wasn't a 3,552 damage game, I don't believe. So that checks quite a bit with other mediums in the same class. So my 34-1, I did 105 battles, 63% at 956 average experience, so higher. And with the damage at 1289 for the Leo, the 34-1 was at 1452. So a bit better, but not a whole bunch. The Chi-Ri I did a long time ago. It's sitting at 1256. Now we move up here, we'll go to the Comet. The Comet is sitting at 1310. The A44 at 1324 and 63% at 94 battles. The T43 at 12. So you can see it's pretty comparable. We get up here to the Panther, which I did a long time ago. It was an atrocious 1,000 with a 56% win rate. And then even the M10, which is one of my better premium tanks, is sitting at 1307. So I was pretty standard for my skill level on how I did with this thing. All right, we'll move on to my setup. For my setup, I've got the 300 Alpha gun, so I put the 10.5 centimeter on it. If you click on this, you can see that the 7.5 is sitting at 150 average damage with a 148 pen and a 200 with gold. So that is interesting. It's actually got a little more pen if you're going to dab the 2 button with the smaller gun. You're getting 155 and 194 with the 10 centimeter and the 300 Alpha. The HE was a bit of a letdown on this tank. I had several games where I thought I was really going to wreck some lights with a fairly decent HE round, 10.5 centimeter, right, 410 average. I just really never seemed to get the pens I wanted against those things. Occasionally it worked out pretty well, so I would say the HE on this, while effective, is kind of indifferent, even though it's a 10.5 centimeter. But if you can pen one of the light tanks, you're going to get more than the 300. But that's the thing, right? The regular round's already 300, and if you're going to dab HE and think, ooh, I'm going to wreck some lights, it only gets you to 410, and then you got all the various randomness and things about the HE mechanic. The next thing you know, you've done 50 damage with HE, and you could have pounded them for 300 with a regular AP or APCR round, and that's what it carries, by the way, is APCR. So that's the gun. Obviously, everything else is top. I am carrying a combat loadout of a medium rammer. I've got the gun laying drive, and I've got the vents. We take a look at this, and there is not a vert stab, so that is why I'm running around with the gun laying drive. I suppose you could drop the gun laying drive because it's, I won't say it's useless, but there are a lot of situations, let's put it that way, where it's not that useful. So you could throw some binoculars on for a little more spotting. If you want to be stealth guy, go with a camo net, probably binoculars or coated optics. And I would say most people would say coated optics would be your best option if you wanted to drop the gun laying drive. I'm carrying 2 small kits and a large fire extinguisher. All right. I could have helped myself. I do have a Brothers in Arms crew, and I'll talk about the crew in just a minute. I could have also helped myself by putting food on this thing, and that may make the gun a bit more comfortable. So if you're really struggling with the gun, consider strongly taking off one of the kits, probably the fire extinguisher, and putting food on there. I don't remember ever being lit on fire by this, or even having my automatic fire extinguisher go off, which may have a lot to do with having an automatic fire extinguisher because it lowers the chance of a fire. So that's going to be to taste. Consider it, though, if you're really getting frustrated with the big gun, you might try that. And I may actually try that at some point in the future. For the crew, My crew had moved on, so when I came back to it to do this review, I had to kludge together a crew, and they weren't great, but they were brothers in arms, or they were working on brothers in arms. Once they got there, though, I grabbed actually one of the female crew from the holiday event and threw her in there because I did not have Sixth Sense. So I put the female crewman in there on commander, and then I took these 3 guys from somewhere else that had brothers in arms and got rid of the non-brothers in arms crew that I had in there. So the first 5 or so games, I was running without Sixth Sense and not a really great crew. And I said, you know what, this is just not working out. At tier 7, and this derpy gun, I've got to have a crew that has decent stats and can do their thing. So I ended up doing that, and this is what they ended up looking like. Brothers in arms, I had Sixth Sense, situational awareness. We've got snapshot, we've got smooth ride after the brothers in arms, and I just went ahead and picked repair to help speed up the repairs a little bit if I get tracked or damaged and that kind of thing. And that is basically my setup. 21 AP, 8 PCR, and 6 HE seemed like a fair loadout for this tank. We'll move on to examples. First thing I want to do is show you a little bit of the derpiness of this gun. I've got a Type 59 right there. I've got HE loaded because he's got 41 hit points. I want to make sure he goes away. So I'm going to get reloaded here. It does take quite a while. Looking to pop out. I've got some hit points to get, and I figure I'll just kill this guy. So I'll come out here and take a shot. Nope. Hits my gun, and I hit the ground or the building or something. So I'll just reload. Being a little over-aggressive, I'm thinking, I'll get him this time. No. So you can see right there, popping out, not letting any settle happen, really derpy. I've got another example for you right after this. Here's a second example of this. Can you see how big that dispersion is? I shoot on the move. It just almost doesn't have a prayer of getting in there. Any shot on the move is going to be inaccurate, but I missed that shot. I come up here. I'm thinking, all right, we'll get this guy. Here we go. We'll ram him. That's kind of how close you have to be right there. So this series coming up, though, is a great example yet again. It's just fantastic. We're going to come down here. We've got 3 tanks to deal with. Looking for that other TD. He's probably down in here somewhere. So we're going to get relatively close to our work with this guy. So we'll come up. Look how big that circle is. He hits me. Takes forever to zoom in. And critical damage. We hit him, but don't pin. Critical damage. And, alright, so we'll kill him this time. We'll wait for it to zoom. Nope. Not completely fully zoomed right there. So he survives that. Also notice the long reload. So it takes me a long time to get back into this fight. And I just decided to ram him. I got tired of missing this. I didn't show you the rest of it, but there were all kinds of misses. Relatively long range shots, but just nowhere near where it needed to be with that big 0.4 dispersion on that thing. So it's something to watch out for. Now let's take a look at full gameplay examples. I thought it was important enough. The gun is derpy enough that you're going to get frustrated if you don't realize what's going on. All right, for this first example, we are on Paris on bottom tier, headed up to the north. One thing you'll find with the 300 Alpha, while it is pretty scary, the amount of damage you can do when you're fighting tier 9s with only, what, 194 or so penetration? Is that what it is? You'll find that that is very difficult to use. So I'm going to go over here where the lights and the mediums play. We'll come up here to this middle bush, middle little sniper hill, being blocked by that crane, of course. They put that in there. And we'll look around. This was before I changed my loadout. Right when I started doing this to get the replays for the review, I was running 29, 4, and 2, but I upped that HE and the APCR to 6 and 8. I was not quite ready for the ISU to show up. The 122 version. We don't have a whole lot going on here, but I'm going to go ahead and be careful. Move up here. A couple good kills. Leopard goes down. Santa Mil goes down. Not a whole bunch seen down the south. About 5 tanks down there. 1 tank up here. There he is. I'm going to back. Just taking a chance that I'm able to get back a little bit more and get out of the way. Down he goes. Get some assist damage out of that. And I think I still have the non-Sixth Sense crew in this tank, but let's see if the Sixth Sense icon goes off. I don't think it will. Pretty sure I hadn't sorted all that out yet. This is one of the first few games that I did. There's an IS back there. There's still a T-49, so he's probably up in those bushes. Second I show up, he's going to shoot. This tank is vulnerable to being pinned by T-49s. Got the Leo on the other corner over there. The other Leo. We're going to be patient. The fight down the south seems to be going well. They really are coming around behind him. The Cairn has gone around. And now I'm starting to consider we need to start pushing and get in these guys' face. Start to put some pressure on the other flank. Our Leo's taking some hits. That P-43 is on the other side of that building. There we go. There's the IS. Ah, T-49 got away from me. So once he was pushed back and that other Leo went up the side, I decided to make my move up here to the north. Or south, sorry. I'm going to come up onto this ramp and see what we can do. There's a WZ-120 down there. I want to be careful. I don't want to be shot by him. There he goes. All right, big gun. Let's... No. Not a full settle. You can see how big the circle was. We'll come around the corner here. And unfortunately, the WZ ends up living. See the other Leo over here. He's being fought by the Cairn, so I'm going to come around this corner. He's distracted by the Caernarvon, so we'll come around there and start shooting him. The good news is our guys are all over them down the south. So I don't have to worry about being shot from down there, because we own that area pretty well. The Reds are all busy being shot by the bad guys. By the good guys, sorry. Somebody. Down he goes. So we'll turn our attention maybe to the other side. Actually, I went up the middle, didn't I? Hey, diddle diddle, right up the middle. And you can see that I'm with the T-54, right? And I talked about that a bit. You really don't want to be out there alone with this tank. That's good advice for anything. This one in particular. Hey, look at that. A running snapshot actually worked. But this tank in particular, you don't want to be out there alone and fight guys who fire much quicker than you. Really, it's like any of the big alpha guns. The problem with them is, even if the DPM is similar, if they miss or have a bounce or some weird thing, I don't know. See, there you go. No idea where that shot went. Then the reload really kills you. So a miss or a bounce is absolutely terrible for a high alpha, slow reloaded gun. You can see I don't even have enough to kill that guy. He's trying to kill himself, I think. Hey, I don't know. It's he actually got another shot off on me. Can you believe that? I have shot at him 3 times, or maybe 4 times. He got 2 shots off on me during our battle. That's a good example right there of the gun with a long reload. If you miss or get a weird bounce or a crit no damage, it just really sets you back. The IS is over here somewhere, or the T-49. There he is. IS is sitting over here. So let's see. Oh, T-49 found me. That's not good. And he's on the run, so I just accept that. Hey, look at that. Crit no damage. Went into his track. I'm going to move up a little bit to try to put some of this little hill there on my left between me and the 49 so it doesn't kill me off. There we go. There's a shot into the rear. Got 182 now. Driver's dead. He's dead, Jim. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure if I get any more hit points. I think I do. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I doesn't. So 1,842. There must have been a blind shot. I think this is a 2,000 damage game. 1 kill, bottom tier, helping out the team. Obviously not at the front. You can take this tank in a situation like this. I could have gone down south, but again, you have to be very careful. Pick your time to pop out and take your shots. I chose to go up into the north and do the medium light tank thing up in the field. All right, let's move on to the next example. Second example is here on Glacier, bottom tier yet again. You will do that a lot in 357. I'm going to come up here, and what I'm looking for is a light tank. I've got that HE loaded up, and I'm looking for the back of a light tank going up that hill. I don't want to go too high right here because I'll get spotted. I'd rather them not know I'm sitting here for the moment, and if one of their lights makes a runner straight up that hill. But it doesn't look like, at least initially, they're doing so. There we go. 25T AP is making a runner. Oh, here it is. Juicy. This should be 400 damage right in his back. Well, not bad. 329. So it looks like a pen. And a faster reload medium would have easily got another shot on that guy. Of course, he probably wouldn't have done 329 initially. And I've got a bulldog in behind me. That's interesting. And I actually hit on that snap, so we kill the bulldog. Not really sure what he was doing. That was kind of a silly place to go raging into. And now I'm thinking about I need to get up on that hill if I can. I have kind of gone to let's go shoot their guys getting up the hill early and then work our way up there if we can later on, if it makes sense. These guys are really busy shooting people, so I'm just going to go. And again, the snap is with me, right? RNG is with me. I get that shot on him. I'm trying to hug that left side, and now I've got the 25 TAP who's hurting. And I was watching him as I came up and over. He went over the edge there and got hit at least one more time. So we're able to clear them out of this top area. And we've got a pretty good advantage here in the northwest. Now I'm going to come up top, and we're going to have some of the derpiness of this gun affect us. Alright, Emil, let's see what we can do against you. Oh, we're spotted. Nope, that's a miss. You can tell because it hit the ground. See a little splash of the ground? That means I did not hit. Briefly considered dropping on top of the 252U for the giggles, but the game wasn't won yet, so let's see if we can secure the win. Maybe I can get a shot on this guy. No, there's a miss. Snapshot. That was going to be a difficult hit and pin even with an accurate gun based on where he was sitting. I'd love to get that T-71 down if I could. And I do. So it's just one of those games where all those kind of shots ended up happening. But I will tell you that that is very much the exception with this tank than the rule. There we go. We got that guy. He actually sees me or timed my move back up or just blind fired. That was an interesting shot. Obviously he knew I was up there. And he may have actually timed me as I was moving. He probably saw I was thinking about coming back up there. There we go. There's a shot on the mill. He's busy shooting somebody up there. That long reload, you can tell, just takes forever. Another one goes in despite the angle, so that works out nicely for me. And this guy, I don't know really what he's doing. He just kind of lost his mind. And I missed. You can tell because it hit the ground behind. I probably need to get off this hill now. That was dopey. Just throw it in there. Now the IS-3A, though, is moving forward, so I'm hoping that he's going to give us some lights right here. There's a T-54. He's going to spot me. There's a shot into him. Works out nicely. IS-3A takes him down, and this is well in hand. I need to get off this hill right now, but I sit up here trying to farm damage. And the E-75 is pretty funny. This guy's making a runner. Decent shell velocity on this thing, as you can see. I didn't give that enough lead fire, and I was able to put a shot into him anyway, right at the back edge of him. I'm never going to pin this thing from the front. I go to gold, but I'm still only going to be at 194, so I'm still going to struggle mightily to pin anything on this tank, especially from the front. And something that spots me there, which was interesting. I'm not really sure. There must be another TD up there that I wasn't seeing, because I'm pretty sure that E-75 wasn't going to see me. It is possible. He was inside the white line. There's a shot, so something else obviously sees me. But this time I did not get spotted. So whatever it was probably fell back. Might have been the Sturv. Maybe he was up forward a little bit. Went back in the travel mode and ran away. And like I said earlier, had I just got off this hill long ago, I'd have been getting some shots on these guys. That was dangerous. That was as likely to hit one of my guys as to hit that red tank. There's the E-75. I'm going to go for that turret. See if we can get a shot into him. We hit it, but no pin. Actually, a little backwards angle on that thing once he turns it based on the shape of the turret. And now I spend the rest of the game, despite the first part of it being great RNG, attempting to track him and get the assist damage. But look at this dispersion circle. I'm thinking, maybe I'll get the turret. No. Oh, I bounced it off my own guy. Thank goodness for the Soviet highly rounded turret right there. Nope. Nowhere near the track, and we end up with 2,206. 3 kills in there. A good example of being a support tank, I go to initial spot. I don't really be the guy to charge up the hill, but I'm waiting to try to punish the people who do. I then flex and get up the hill right there when it looks like it's clear, do some damage to some people, and then fail to come off the hill. But in this case, I support from quite a long ways away, and that's going to give me all kinds of trouble with this gun. Based on some of the snaps I took and the shots I took, this very well could have been an 800 damage game with just a few bad RNG rolls in there, which this, not necessarily bad RNG rolls, but RNG rolls that are dealing with a .4 dispersion gun, like I said, could easily have been an 800. But the positioning was solid until the last one. I should have got off this carrier long ago. Could have been up there and maybe getting a few more hit points. All right, let's go to the third example. All right, let's take it with a top tier example. This ends up being a Radley Walters pretty good game. We were on Redshire, spawned into the north, and I'm headed down to the blimp area to fight. And you can see as top tier, I'm looking over there and it's medium. So we've got a medium, a Scorpion, and another medium on top. Actually, there's only two tier 7s on each side. I had not noticed that till right now, so that was even more of an advantage for the tier 7 tanks. The Leo and the JP on our side and the A44 and Scorpion on their side. With the decent mobility, I can get there. And this is one time where I kind of went away from the don't be the very first guy there, because as top tier with this big stick, I should be able to handle most things that show up. I was a little bit worried about scrumming with the A44 early because he was going to hurt me pretty good. But you notice that he showed up in the middle. So right off the bat, I'm looking for some easy shots on somebody showing up here. And what is interesting is there's already a fast TV or Artie or something in those trees back there. So I just back out. No sense letting them shoot me for free. And the middle is having a big fight. We sent a lot of guys here, and all of a sudden there's just nobody here. And I'm getting the feeling that they haven't sent much over here to the blimp. And I've got a lot of friends. So we're just going to start filtering through over here. I'm going to see if I can get some shots on this A44 Scorpion and the rest of their buddies that are hanging out in the middle. Until somebody shows up over here, then I'm going to look for shots in this area. And right off the bat, there's that depression, come up and over. I'm going to let it settle, and I'm going to take my shot. And that's really just how you have to be careful with this tank. I'm just going to let this settle, very careful. Let's see what happens. There we go. So we got a shot on him. And I've dabbed 2 right off the bat, obviously, against those 2 targets. I really wish I had not. But I was expecting to see the A44, and it was one of those cases of not noticing. So it's something you got to watch for, and now I've switched back over to the regular AP until I've got to face something with armor. And there's not a whole bunch here that has it. Here we go. Let's kill this guy. That's always fun. Yep. So he's down. And with a 300 Alpha, you start talking about some tier 5 tanks. There's some tier 5 tanks, especially artillery, you can take out with 1 shot. There's a 3-4. Easy kill, right? We'll take him down. Oh, no, that's crit, no damage. Hanging out a little bit. I know that A44 is up there. I just got spotted. Let's see if we can come up over here and kill this guy this time. Where is he? There he is, same place. There we go. Got him down. And I should have backed off the hill. I get hung up on that thing that's hanging down right there. But again, I know these guys are all around in the middle, but the A44 now is busy. I'm going to blind shot this guy. There you go. RNG helps me out. I know the A44 is busy, so I'm just hoping that he's not actually pointing at me. And as a matter of fact, he's on the other side of that little fold. There are some TDs in there, so I'm going to kind of blast across here. Not really the wisest decision. Headed for these buildings. I want to start wrapping around these guys if I can. There's the Achilles. So we can get him. Shoot him on the run, right? It'll work. Yes. Like most games where you get a Radley Walters or some epic battle, things just really work out for you. And you got to put yourself in the position for things to work out for you. But RNG takes over sometimes. The 25 TP is unseen, so he's over there somewhere. I thought he was over by the castle, but he's actually further away. And I get hammered by the A44 right there for 346 plus a fire. It's almost 400 hit points. That really hurt. And there he is. He's right in the middle. So I knew it was unwise to go right up the middle to begin with. I should have approached from over this way, where I've got more of my friends with me. They've all kind of flexed up. The guys that are alive flexed up to the camping on that hill. So now we've got to peel these guys out of a relatively strong defensive position, but the A44 keeps getting spotted and damaged, so we should be able to deal with this guy. There we go. And a low roll keeps him alive. There he is. Fortunately, I saved enough APCR to at least use one on him. I've got one left if I've got to deal with him, but he dies. The 304 kills him. I'm up to 5 kills now. And we're going to, this is just clean up on aisle 2, although we do need to be a bit careful. You would want to watch out. What is this thing? A Hellcat is a dangerous foe if he's hidden, and we've got some low hit point guys that he can potentially take down. The 304 and his T25 TP buddy gets spotted right off the bat, and there's plenty of guns up here working on. So I'm going to come up here and join them. I want to get rid of him first. There we go. 304 is making a runner. He survives that somehow, gets behind a rock. There's the Hellcat, so he's over here. We'll shift over towards that guy. And see that he is running towards the artillery, so he's probably made the determination that in order to salvage anything out of this game, he just needs to go get some damage off of lightly armored stuff. I'm going to let this zoom. Oh, there we go. RNG working out for me. That is number 7. And I'm pressing now. I really want to get in there and find at least one of these guys and get a kill. There goes the HMC. I'll take a look at him, thinking about a snap, but he's down below the fold, so I know I can keep on pushing. I'm out ahead of everyone, minus the P43 who's getting close to him. And I know both these guys are probably hanging out in these folds over here. So there's the M4. He ends up seeing me. He's not a one-shot, so let's put some damage on him. There we go. That's a few of the hit points. The HMC's running that way. I switched to him because I kind of figured that the M4 is going to die before I get reloaded. So I switch right, being totally greedy, looking for that 8th kill. And I knew the P43 and the other tank were pushing the M4, so I was unlikely to get that kill. So I switched over to the HMC and took him down. 2,314, 8 kills. Top tier, like any top tier battle, you're probably going to have a good day if you play it well, or if you play it well and have RNG, you may have a very good day. But just an example of top tier with the Leo, with that big gun, it really can be devastating if there's not a lot out there to counter you, and there simply wasn't on this game. All right, let's wrap this thing up. All right, well, that's a review for the Tier 7 Swedish Leo. Overall, what would I say about this tank? You know, it was a struggle. The thing is a struggle to play with that 300mm gun, 300 Alpha, 10.5 centimeter gun. I felt like I was always dragging the thing to victory. I did well in it. It's not my top Tier 7 medium, but it's right there solidly in the middle of them. But I always felt like I was struggling to do well. And I had games where I'd take 14 shots, have 7 hits and 2 pens. And everyone has those games, but it just happened a lot with this tank. So it was feast or famine. It really was. Either RNG was with you or was against you. And when you're talking a large dispersion, slow zoom gun in this game, RNG has an inordinate amount of influence on how that tank does. Unless you are extremely, extremely careful. I could have helped myself with food. So had I do it again, I would have put food on the tank to be sure, and that would have helped out quite a bit, I think. But at 0.4, man, it's a good platform as far as speed and mobility. It's a cool tank. It's got great gun depression, but the 300 Alpha gun will troll you. So just be prepared for that. Understand it and try to adjust your gameplay a little bit better than I did, so that you're a little bit more methodical and careful about your shots. And it'll probably go a little even better than what I did. All right, I hope this helped. I can't remember who it was who requested it, but there you go. Review of the Leo. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you.